Who are you? What's your role? And where do you work?
My name is Gary Singh. I'm a outbound product manager, which is a mystery to anybody, but and I work for Google, specifically on containers.
What are 3 Kubernetes emerging tools that you're keeping an eye on?
Some people may say it. I'm actually looking at anything Wasm related. I just think that there's possibly something there. So, whether it be SpinCube, Wasm Cloud, et cetera, that are in there. I actually am kind of interested in some of the eBPF stuff. So I'm looking at like Pixie, actually. I think there's some interesting tie-ins to how we can maybe get some insights into GPUs and monitoring and some fast stuff in there. Yeah, that's really the only, actually 2 that I'm looking at, to be honest with you.
That's all good. Now, on the subject of multi-tenancy, one of our guests, Artem, shared that between a single cluster with multiple environments and dedicated clusters per environment, the latter is easier to manage for a small team. When you share a cluster with multiple teams, should you share a single cluster or offer a dedicated cluster per tenant? What does your choice depend on?
That is a fantastic question. Well, I think I'll answer it slightly differently. I actually think that you should always plan to be able to support multiple clusters, because at some point, even though we have like huge clusters now, you're going to run out of something's going to run out of resources. You could always have an architecture that supports that. Generally, I think the model works in multiple namespace-based isolation or whatever within a cluster. Kind of works if the apps have similar profiles, similar upgrades, similar updates, maybe more stateless, so the blast rate isn't so bad. But, if people want to bring in things like they're not dedicated, right? You can only do kind of like authorization. You're not full separation. If you truly need full isolation, you want to have separate the blast radius, you want to install your own versions of operators, then you've got to go to sort of a dedicated cluster model. So personally, I think you should have a model that actually supports both and then abstracts across namespace as a service, but be able to run it on a single cluster or across multiple clusters.
GKE, Kubernetes Managed Services. Our guest Matt argues that GKE is one of the best Kubernetes managed services because a lot of complexity is taken away from you. For example, he mentioned Autopilot as a way to provision the correct node size and optimize your utilization automatically. What's your opinion on Kubernetes managed services? Are they all created equal? Should they offer a more friendly Kubernetes wrapper as GKE, or only the basics without any opinion on how you want your Kubernetes cluster?
Fantastic question. So I'm actually a big fan of the Autopilot model itself, and not just specifically just because I work at Google. Prior to coming to Google, I was running about 5,000 clusters, and I was like, great that people manage the control plane, which I think is a great thing for most managed providers to do. But can't somebody just like manage my nodes, like help with upgrades, manage resizings? Why do I have to do all this stuff myself? So I think things like Autopilot, node auto provisioning, some of our new stuff, all kind of make sense. For a majority of users, to be honest, they should be able to focus on their workloads, not have to focus on the infrastructure. But you also do need an option for people to sort of, drill down. So I would say if we want Kubernetes to continue to go and the market to grow, like Autopilot, more fully managed, is probably the way to go, with the ability to break out when you need to.
Autoscaling and Carpenter. Our guest Ghazal prefers Carpenter over Cluster Autoscaler for cluster autoscaling, highlighting its benefits and reliability. In particular, Ghazal and his team used Carpenter to consolidate workloads and save around 40% of their cloud bill. Carpenter was also donated from AWS to the Kubernetes project. How do you think this will shape the future of autoscaling in Kubernetes?
Another really good question. I think that, there are some, I think some interesting issues in the sort of cluster autoscaler itself. Some of the issues that I think Carpenter tried to address, I think we had addressed ourselves as well before with things like auto provisioning and provisioning the right side nodes. We have an alternative, I guess I would say that to it, with sort of custom compute classes today to meet those sort of functionality. I like the fact that Carpenter is also now in like SIG cluster autoscaler. I don't like the fact that we diverged a bit. It's kind of like writing your own scheduler. So I think it has affected the trajectory of it. I think it's brought back that we need to do more work on the cluster autoscaler, make it more flexible and add some of that stuff. So hopefully some of the work we've done with custom compute classes, the work that's Carpenter's done, somehow we can bring some of those features back into a more uniform stack so that we don't have to rewrite the entire power of the cluster autoscaler 3 different times.
Upgrading clusters. Our guest Pierre stressed the significance of tooling and automation in managing Kubernetes clusters at scale. He and his team built tooling and developed procedures to test, manage, and upgrade hundreds of Kubernetes clusters. What's your strategy and process for upgrading a Kubernetes cluster?
So we've been spending a lot of time actually trying to figure out how to manage a worldwide global fleet of clusters on customers' behalf for sort of upgrading. There's a lot of things I think involved in it. We've tried to automate upgrades, to be able to make them sort of seamless, well tested. Some of the stuff that we've learned is really from customers, right? So we see people doing taking blue-green approaches to node pools, right? We see people who want to only upgrade like once a year, whether you want to or not, right? They need maintenance windows, maintenance exclusion. So I think if we can build enough automation and trust into the managed provider system, that's probably the better way to go. But there's always going to be people who want to have, sort of self-control, and control everything themselves, right? I think so. That's that drawing that fine line. And probably as you talked to our previous guy, Nick, on fleets, I think we've tried to do that across as many environments as possible. We'll try to integrate things like rollouts, upgrade your dev environment first, then wait till your test environment, your staging environment. So I think we can get this way on the managed services. But yeah, I agree that some people are going to do it themselves because they have their own specific nitty-gritty rules they have to follow.
Kubernetes turned 10 years old this year. What should we expect in the next 10 years to come?
My hope for Kubernetes will be one, that it will still survive that test of time. The API still seems to be powerful. It's great that we can run GenAI workloads on it rather than building a new platform. I'd like to see us in 10 years that we don't talk about, we talked about having like 65,000 nodes on GKE. I'd like to say that we don't talk about nodes. We just talk about mostly elastic compute that brings you the right compute when you need it, where you need it, and why you need it, without even having to talk about that stuff. And we simply focus on workloads. And I think we can get there in about 10 years.
What's next for you?
I'm just going to keep going on. And next year I'll be out there. GKE will turn 10. So we had the 10 years of Kubernetes this year. So I'll be out there trying to spread the word on GKE, push things like cluster auto scaling. Driving containers, and I was like, my cheesy statement would be like, saving the world one container at a time is kind of what I do.
All right. How can people get in touch with you?
Any way they want. I'm on Twitter, but not that much. Gary tweets. LinkedIn, you can find me. Gary Singh, I was the first guy over there. LinkedIn's probably the best way. Or you could probably figure out my Google email and just email me.